Hello and welcome to Hope After. This podcast is for couples navigating the impact of pornography on their marriage, and today's episode is especially for women who feel exhausted, overwhelmed and unsure how to protect themselves without making everything worse. If you've been living on high alert, scanning, monitoring, second guessing your own instincts, then this conversation is here to slow that down. Before we go any further, I want to say something plainly because many women feel guilty even listening to an episode about boundaries. You're not cold for needing them, you're not controlling for wanting safety, and you're not unloving for protecting yourself. Just let that settle. If at any point you realise you need more than orientation, we can help you walk through this stage carefully and with structure and support. Details are in the show notes. For now, let's talk about chaos and why boundaries are not about control, but containment. Before we talk about them, though, we need to acknowledge what many women are living inside after porn betrayal. It isn't just that it's painful, it's that it feels unstable. Your mind won't settle. You can move from numb to furious to anxious in a single afternoon, and you ask a question and then replay the answer for hours, wondering whether you missed something. You notice small changes in tone, in timing, in body language, and your system reacts before you've consciously decided anything. And you might find yourself checking devices, looking at histories, revisiting conversations, not because you want to, but because something inside you is trying to prevent the next shock. That isn't weakness. It's your nervous system doing its best to protect you in the absence of containment. When trust fractures and nothing replaces it yet, the body goes into surveillance mode. It stays alert because it hasn't been given a reason to rest. So if you've been asking yourself, why can't I calm down? The answer may not be that you're dramatic or overreactive. It may simply be that there has been no structure to hold the rupture. And that is what boundaries are for. Boundaries are not about punishing someone, they're about stopping the spill. The word boundary often carries weight in Christian marriages. Many women have been subtly taught that love means availability, softness, endurance. So when the idea of boundaries surfaces, it can feel sharp or even disloyal. But a boundary is not a threat. It's not an ultimatum, and it's not you attempting to reshape someone else's behaviour. A boundary is you deciding what you will and will not participate in so that you can remain emotionally and psychologically intact. There is a difference between saying you must do this and saying I cannot remain in this dynamic. The first attempts control, the second clarifies what is required for you to stay present. Boundaries are not about forcing change, they're about protecting dignity, and sometimes the most loving act in a chaotic situation is refusing to keep absorbing the chaos. When boundaries are absent, women often slide into roles they never consciously agreed to take on. You might become the monitor, checking devices, analysing tone, living in quiet vigilance. You tell yourself you're being responsible, but your body never relaxes. Or you become the organiser of his recovery. You research accountability software, you schedule conversations, you carry the emotional weight of both people. You're trying to build stability, but you're doing it alone. Or you turn the scrutiny inward, you minimise your pain, you rush intimacy, you silence yourself so the house feels calmer, even though inside nothing has settled. None of these positions restore safety. They entrench you further inside the trauma. Boundaries exist, so you do not have to become a detective, a therapist, or a prison guard in your own marriage. And if that sentence lands heavy, it may be because you've been doing far too much for far too long. Now, I didn't understand this at first. I believed that being loving meant being endlessly available. So I stayed in conversations long after I was shaking internally. I tried to sound reasonable. I tried to appear steady. What I didn't see at the time was that I was re-traumatizing myself. I wasn't healing. I was overriding. I pushed through conversations at night when my body was exhausted. I forced myself to be open to intimacy before I felt safe. And I agreed to discussions simply because I was afraid of what would happen if I paused. And I was frantic with the research. Learning to say, I can't talk about this right now, felt frightening. Not because it was wrong, but because I was used to managing the room. The first time I chose timing over urgency, I felt guilty. The second time I felt steadier. Over time, something shifted. I began to feel like a person again rather than a responder. Boundaries, they didn't harden me, they stabilised me. Jez, from your side, what did it feel like when I started setting clearer limits?
Well, as you can imagine, I really didn't like it. It made me feel really uncomfortable. But it made me realise how serious this was. And shortly after that, it helped me feel a lot more calmer about things.
Okay, yeah.
It felt less chaotic and I knew where I stood.
Yeah.
It didn't feel like punishment and it felt so much clearer.
Oh, okay, that's good, because I obviously didn't want it to feel like punishing. I knew I needed these boundaries. And sometimes, well, boundaries can be used as a form of punishment, but I just want to summarize by saying when the chaos stopped spilling into every corner of the day, something changed. I guess it didn't feel like punishment. It just felt contained. Now, there is one truth here that women need to hear. Boundaries do not create willingness. They reveal it. If your partner is willing, boundaries will support recovery. They will create structure and clarity. They'll reduce confusion. If your partner is unwilling, boundaries will protect you. Either way, boundaries serve your safety, not his comfort. You are allowed to stop participating in dynamics that leave you braced and unsettled, even if someone else finds that inconvenient. Disappointment is not the same thing as danger. Let's walk this through gently and practically. So emotional boundaries, these protect your internal world. You are allowed to choose timing. You're allowed to decline late night processing. You're allowed to end a conversation if it becomes defensive, minimizing, or cruel. An emotional boundary might sound something like, I'm willing to talk about this tomorrow when we're both calmer. Or I won't continue this conversation if I'm being dismissed. You're not required to remain emotionally available at all times in order to prove love. Availability without safety becomes exposure. There's also information boundaries. After betrayal, it is natural to believe that more information equals more safety. But sometimes more information simply produces more intrusive imagery. It can create loops in your mind that do not resolve anything. You're entitled to honesty. You're not obligated to absorb graphic detail. An information boundary might sound like, I need truth, but I don't need explicit description. Or I'm not revisiting this repeatedly once clarity has been established. This is not denial, it's stewardship of your mind. There's also physical and relational boundaries. Now, this is tender territory. Sex, touch, sleeping arrangements, affection. These are deeply connected to safety. You are never required to resume sex in order to demonstrate forgiveness. You're not obligated to override your body's signals to maintain closeness. If your body says not yet, that's not rebellion, it's protection. A physical boundary might simply be, I need safety before intimacy. Jez, for men listening, what would you say about that?
I think what was really important for me was to give Jo time and space. I knew the damage that I'd caused. If she didn't feel safe, pushing it makes it feel so much worse. You can't rebuild trust and demand closeness at the same time.
No.
So it's timing as well, and just trying to read how your wife could be feeling.
Yeah. Yeah, that's exactly right. Now, boundaries are not a magic cure. They will not erase pain. They'll not guarantee honesty, and they will not eliminate uncertainty overnight. What they will do is reduce chaos. They give your nervous system a structure to rest inside. They stop you abandoning yourself just to keep peace. And if someone suggests that boundaries are unloving or unbiblical, remember this: Jesus withdrew when crowds pressed in. He declined demands. He did not allow urgency to dictate his movements. And when God created the Garden of Eden, he put angels to protect it. Love without limits is not holy. It is sustainable. Now, many women fear that setting boundaries will provoke anger, withdrawal, or accusation. And that fear is understandable, but his reaction is information. If willingness is present, boundaries will be understood as pathways back to safety, even if they're uncomfortable. If entitlement is present, boundaries may trigger defensiveness. You're not responsible for managing someone else's discomfort with your safety. You're responsible for protecting your heart within reality. Let's just pause for a moment, just to breathe and ask yourself quietly, where am I overfunctioning? Where am I silencing myself to keep things smoother? And what is one small boundary that would reduce chaos this week? Not a dramatic overhaul or a big speech, just one clear, consistent adjustment. Boundaries do not have to be loud. They need to be steady. If this conversation has helped you understand why you feel so exhausted, that matters. The podcast offers some clarity and orientation. But we can also help you walk through this stage with structure to help you set boundaries without guilt, discern protective boundaries from reactive ones, and communicate them calmly. So if you'd rather think through your specific situation privately, then do get in touch. There's no pressure, but you don't have to navigate this alone. All the details are in the show notes. Let me close with this. You're not being difficult. You're not demanding too much. You're responding to something that mattered. Boundaries are not walls. They are doors with hinges. They can open again, but only when safety returns. Right now, your task is not to fix the marriage. It's to stop the bleeding. Now, in the next episode, we'll talk about accountability and structure, what healing actually requires once containment is in place. Until then, move gently. You are allowed to protect your heart.